Okay, so I have horrible ADD, and I'm gonna have my phone with me to try to keep myself on track. But let me know if I have to back up. I'm Courtney. I'm sorry, my bio is like the most boring thing ever. I need to write it, and this is gonna be one of those sessions where you're like, do what I say, not as I do, because my bio is a really good example of why I need to have a little bit more information about what my site is actually about. I want to first introduce myself. My name's Courtney. I have Sweet C's, and I want to explain why I'm talking to you guys about SEO today, because I have been blogging since, that graph only goes to 2014, but since 2010. My blog stalled for a really long time. I was stuck forever and ever and ever. I was doing everything I could do. I was pinning, I was following schedules, I was trying Facebook videos, just everything. And I couldn't ever break out of a certain traffic pattern that I was stuck in until I started getting into SEO. And you can see right away, it started boosting, and gaining. I do not have the biggest site, but I'm really proud of these gains. They were really quick, and I've helped a lot of other friends do the same. So I'm not an SEO expert. We're not going to get into the nitty gritty. We're not going to be talking about the super technical, complicated things. You should probably use an SEO expert with that. But I'm going to talk about getting out of your way when doing SEO. So many of us get so freaked out by all these things. Who sits and looks at the graphs for hours and hours and hours? You're stuck in SEMrush, you're stuck in Ahrefs, whatever you're using, and you're like, I don't know what to write about. I don't know what people are clicking on. I don't know if I use this title or this title. Is my blog going to crash? Is anyone going to find this? We have to get totally out of that mindset. And hopefully, I'm going to help you guys do that today. So that's just me. Before we start, I am a huge believer in the power of positive thought, and I'm not a woo person, but this is the most woo you're going to get from me. I noticed, and by the way, there's going to be a link at the end that you can download all of this, so don't worry about taking pictures and things. You can get the slides later. But I noticed when I was stuck for a long time, I was saying, my site sucks. People don't know how to find my site. My things are not connecting with readers. And what was happening? Well, all those things, because that's all I was saying. So you need to get completely out of your head. If you don't believe that your site is going to grow, if you don't believe that you can do SEO, if you don't believe that you can have a ton of page views, it's never going to happen. You have to tell yourself this. You have to believe in it. It's going to motivate you to wake up and work and do the work and really connect. So I know that's really cheesy, but I needed someone to beat me over the head with it and be like, well, Courtney, you can't complain about all these things because that's the only energy you put out. So no, going forward, we're all going to be SEO experts. We're all going to make a ton of money, and everyone is going to love our sites. And I mean, I know it's so cheesy, but you really, really have to believe it. And I'm going to fly through things, so please stop me if anyone has questions before, after, whenever. I love doing some of that. Okay, so to start right off, if you look at your site, do you look at it from a user's perspective or from your perspective? When Steph was reading my bio, it's boring. It is so dry. I have no idea why I wrote any of that, because no one cares that I used to work in the Senate. I care about that. I have it in there because I'm I want this blog stuff to work out because I don't want to have to go back to having a real job. I hated being, actually I love being a lobbyist, but the hours were terrible. I hated working for the government. I made no money. I put that in my bio for me to motivate myself, but literally nobody but myself cares about that. No one cares. I'm a food and travel blogger. I don't talk about that stuff. Why do I have it in there? Stupid. I need to rework that. Are you thinking about your own site in those terms? Are you thinking, oh, is Courtney going to sit down and Google, did I used to work at McDonald's, or these things? No one cares about that kind of stuff. You have so many things that you do offer to readers, and a lot of times as bloggers, we overthink so much, and hopefully after today, we can focus on what people are looking for, what does make us unique. And that's not to say that my story isn't interesting, it's just not super relevant to what I'm talking about. Has anyone here ever audited their own site? I know we pay lots and lots and lots of money to SEO experts to audit our sites, and that's totally valuable. I've done them, it's helped me. I can give recommendations. But the most important thing I've ever done is actually opening up my site and pretending I'm a reader and going through and thinking of it as someone totally else. And I sit and look, what am I offering people? If someone's clicking around on my site, what are they clicking for? If I'm going on here to find a recipe or a travel idea, am I saying, well, I don't understand where she's going with this, or, oh, I'm just going to scroll through all this extra text about her kids and whatever life story, or am I putting in information that people actually want to read and connect with? Part of that is archive structure. Does anyone have a really good, solid archive structure? Do you sit and look at your posts and look through how you have them set up and see if it's easy for people to follow through? Like, if I make a brownie, am I putting it in desserts? Am I putting it in one-pot recipes? Am I putting it in all these different things? Really sit down and look at your site in the back end, the way you have things structured. This is one of the easiest things, by the way, that you can do right now today. Move some things around on your site and make sure that you're actually marketing things for people to be able to find them. I used to just throw things wherever. I would add like millions of tags on my posts, crazy things that no one would ever be able to find, and I tagged them like Inspiration Monday or something no one's ever going to look at. And then went through a lot of my old posts and thought like, oh, maybe instead of calling it Inspiration Monday, I could call it Easy Brownies or Easy Baked Goods. I know that some of that is like the past years of blogging, so if you are a newer blogger, maybe you're not in some of those mind traps, but for me, updating a lot of my old content to reflect what people are actually looking for versus the old diary style of blogging has made such a huge amount of traffic, and you don't need any technical knowledge to be able to do any of that. Everyone can move things in a menu. It's really easy to categorize things. If you can't do the actual presentation part of it, get a designer that can. But look at your site's organization and find out ways that you can better make your content available to users. Your About Me page. Steph read mine. It's so boring. What I need to add in there, more of my keywords. Why are you on the site? Are you on the site because I'm a former lobbyist and Senate staffer? No, you're on the site because I talk about travel and recipes. Why don't I have more of what I offer in there? When you put anything on your site, you need to look at it as, if someone is just looking at this one page, what are they going to get from me? And for mine, there's no inspiration there. But when you craft something that says like, oh, I know this girl because she's an expert on X, Y, and Z. She is super busy and travels all over the world, but she can get a pretty enough looking dinner on the table that her kids like and her family likes. All right, you're in. You're ready to go through my site. So many people will look at that, and if you're not connecting with them and you're not selling yourself as an expert, they're not going to buy you as an expert. And people leave your site a lot faster. It also just helps to have all of your info matching the same. So if I'm saying I'm an expert on X, Y, and Z because that's what all my posts are about, I should probably say it in my About Me page because it's just another bit of information that you're sending to Google. Google likes to have all of the information that they can, and it just helps them do their job. So anytime that you can add things in, not stuffing, but filling out everything to its maximum. These are things we don't pay attention to. We don't look at our About Me pages. We don't look at our categories, but we need to be because we're just giving better, more accurate information so that people can find our sites. And again, doesn't take any technical knowledge. Marking up category pages, another really easy thing to do. If you go into your categories, does anyone have descriptions in their category pages? If your hand is not up right now, I want you to go home today and write a description of what your category is about in the category page. Any page that's organized or any kind of menu, anything on your site should be filled in. If you don't fill it in, that's valuable information you're not giving to Google. They want you to help them do their job to find you. And the more information you put in the right places, and the right information, don't just stuff it with things that it doesn't apply to. You want easy, clear focus, and you want to put it everywhere you can. So just make sure that you're really, really focusing on things that are going to help your content be found. Audit yourself in Google Search Console. Has anyone done that? It's a horrifying process because you get billions of warnings or errors, things, and you look at it and you're like, oh, I have like 5,000 things to do. So many of them are so easy. And what you're going to do is go into Search Console. I thought it would be too hard to do this live, but I would be totally willing to help anyone pull up how to do it. I like to go in and look at my posts, and if it says, like when you go through the, when you add in your URL in Search Console, it'll give you a report of things that you're missing in each post. So it'll say, I don't have a focused, a featured image on certain things. I didn't do a meta tag on certain things. You get a warning if you don't have a video on certain posts. Obviously, not everyone can do a video on every post, but it helps to look at what Google is saying is wrong with your posts and with your structure. And so many of the times, the things that come back are the easiest, simplest changes to do. Like, oop, I forgot to put in a featured image in this post from 2010. Or, oh, I didn't make the statement of this post clear. Like, nobody knows exactly what I'm talking about when they click on my post. Little tiny things like that make such a huge difference. And again, so easy. So everyone go in and look and see what errors you're getting and other ways that you can add information to Google. And you know what? They tell you what they want. So it's really easy to make them happy. They say, we want X, Y, and Z, and they'll tell you what to do and what to change. Finding your site's strengths. A lot of times, I know for me as a blogger, I get so in my head when I'm writing posts, when I'm trying to find a keyword, when I'm trying to do these things, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to write this viral recipe because I know it's done really well for someone else. And I'll do it, and it gets no traffic. Well, that's because I'm not playing to my strengths. I'm playing to someone else's strengths. Your readers tell you exactly what they want every single day. They're leaving us comments. They're giving you better page views. They're clicking around to other sites and things. They're not leaving your site right away. We have to look at what our users are saying they like and not look at what's working for someone else. And I'll kind of contradict myself in a minute, but we so often sit down and look at other people and say, oh, she's crushing it because she's doing this, so I need to do this. And while there is some value in that, and again, I'll talk about that in a minute, you really have to look at you because people are on your site for a reason and they're not on that other person's site. So you need to see what are they connecting with and don't fight it. They tell you what they want. Don't go against it. There's so many times that I've tried to do something. I'm like, oh, it's going to grow. It's going to go so big. And it totally flops because that's not what my people are into. So just chasing off someone else's successes are never, ever going to work for you. Yeah, that's. Who gets the really super hateful comments? If you look through mine right now, it's pretty horrible. I think people just like to come and complain on my page. I'm like a part-time therapist, and I don't get paid enough for what some of the people say. And it gets really hard to hear some of these things and be like, oh, why did I have to scroll a half a page? I spent 4 minutes of my life scrolling. It's like, you have to really sit down and look at what people are saying and what people are doing and kind of remember so many people on the internet are there to just complain and bitch. Everyone just wants to complain about something. In our world with social media, everything, no one feels like they're connecting anymore. This is their chance to connect to you. You don't need to take it on. I am really trying hard to filter through, like, is there a pattern coming through this? Am I hearing the same thing over and over? Is there something I should be looking at? Or if I get one negative comment out of, 60,000 views that day, okay, it's one person that's just cranky. Really keep the percentages and the numbers in your mind and look at your users' behavior before freaking out over one negative comment. Because I have gone through and done total site changes and redesigns on one comment and killed my site. Do you have certain posts that are getting more traffic than others? Do you get certain patterns? Again, we so often as bloggers look to other people instead of looking at our own sites to see what is working for us. So the number one thing that you can go home today is look at your page's analytics, look at different post analytics, look at your number one post, see what the exit rate is on it. Look at a less popular post. Do people stay on it as long? What do you have in the popular post that you don't have in the unpopular post? Maybe you're talking about a topic that your readers just don't care about. Maybe you didn't put in a video, and that little bit of extra information can help find more readers and connect with more readers. Maybe you are not solving the problem that your readers would like to have answered by going to your post. It really, really helps to compare different strengths with some of your weaker posts because you can find a lot of patterns there and change so many things. There's one post I have that goes insanely viral, and I did a similar recipe, and I thought, oh, this one was huge. It's going to go great, right? Well, it tanked because I rushed through it, and I just used a little bit. And the one post was so great because I spent so much time in writing about the background, and these are the problems that people usually have with this, and this is how you can present it, and you can do this, this, and this. And the other post, I was like, oh, well, this was popular. This is similar. I'll just slap it up. Yeah, no one looked at it because I wasn't serving my readers' needs. And by sitting down and comparing the two, I really quickly realized, oh, okay, in the one post I said how to freeze this dish, how to reheat it, how to store this, what alternative ingredients you can use, all these different things. And in the other one, I just like slapped some text on. It was really, really clear to me when I looked at through that lens that, okay, this is what my readers really like, this is what they're connecting with, and this is what I need to take. And that's going to be different for every single site because every single site has different strengths. And again, you can't take someone's post. I can't take Becky's post and say, I'm going to make the best chicken tacos and just copy her post word for word. It won't go anywhere on my site unless that's what my readers are actually looking for, unless I have really great other posts that boost up that post. It doesn't work that way. Just because something works for her, it's not going to work for me. Certain views, bringing more topics. I have travel on my site because I'm a travel addict, and I get okay views from it. But if I'm being honest with myself, I should probably just focus on food. I won't ever do that. But if you're sitting and looking at things with a black and white, I put so much time into my travel posts because I love them, and that's my hobby, and that's my like extra boost, and they do okay. But if I'm sitting there and being honest with myself, well, maybe I should just focus on the one thing or what people are looking at. And that's not to say that people can't have different niches on your site. I'm a big believer in you can do whatever you want if you do it well, but maybe I'm not putting my full strengths into certain things that I am with others. Do you get a lot of affiliate or link clicks? Do your readers see you as a trusted source of information? That is a huge one. I notice that posts that I have so much more information in and people find really, really useful, I make a lot of money from, which is great. And not just from ads, from affiliates. And it took me a long time to see, oh, okay, I have to establish my authority in this. I have to say, this is why you want to buy this product, and using my link, because I actually know what I'm talking about. So many times we don't do this. We just like add in the link and expect people to click, and no one's going to do that. Whether it's affiliate, whether it's to another post, whether it's to something else. Look at how your users are interacting with your information, because they will tell you if they find it valuable. And they should if you want to have a big site. I'm speeding through this so fast, by the way. Keywords that grab views. Again, anyone spends half their life in SEMrush looking for keywords, because that's me every single day. It's very obnoxious. I hate it, but that's part of what we all do. a lot of what we need to be doing, I can sit in SEMrush for hours and hours and hours, and I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna write about this and this and this. And I forget my readers in a lot of it. I forget myself in a lot of it. You look at this and you're like, ooh, chicken thighs are huge right now, I should do this. Well, but not if that's not what they're into. A lot of what we are doing as bloggers in SEO right now is so mechanical and so am I pleasing Google that we forget Google likes it if we please our readers. They could have someone that has a computer that spits out a post that is technically perfect, but you're not necessarily going to get readers that way. So we need to shift. Yes, you need to see what's important, what's trending, what people are looking for, because if you're writing a post that no one's looking for, no one's going to look for it. But we have to remember that we're not just going for an algorithm, we're not just going for a keyword, we're going for people, we're going for users. So when you're looking at a keyword, when you're saying, oh, I want to be the #1 on random, obscure nothing, maybe there's other words that you can shift that people are actually looking for. You can keep your creativity. I hear so many people that say, well, I don't want to do this because then I'm going to be writing about X, Y, and Z and everyone already does it. There's already a million baked chicken posts. I don't need to do another one. I want to do something cool and inventive. Well, is there a way that you can take your cool and inventive and unique recipe and call it something that's more accessible to more of your readers and bring them into it and tell them about this really interesting dish or this great trip that you took that no one else has ever heard of? Can you say it's going to an undiscovered location versus going to Paris? Or there's so many different things that you can do to present something to your readers to make it more accessible, and that doesn't mean you have to dumb down your posts or be really bland. Because so many people think, oh, I'm just gonna make it in the most generic terms and I'm just gonna have something super plain because that's what everyone looks for. While that is true that that's what everyone looks for, I mean, if I'm sitting down, I'm not gonna have a super obscure term, I'm gonna go for something more broad. That doesn't mean I don't wanna see other things that fit in that. I like to say I dumb down my keywords a little bit just because it's a little bit easier to find. Use plain, well-used language. It's really easy. If you're using something super technical that no one has ever heard of, no one's going to look for it. There are ways that you can relate the information that you're giving to your audience. It's very, very easy, so you kind of have to think like a user. I like to say that I have Karen from Sheboygan, which is funny because I have an ex-boyfriend's mom that was really cool that still reads my site, so I'm writing for her. And I sit and think like, well, is Karen gonna sit down at her computer and look for this? And if it doesn't work, and you can name it anything, think of your user and be writing to them as well as writing for Google. And so much of that we've forgotten lately. Everyone should have their user in mind, and you should be writing to them every day, and you will see how different you write so much faster. You write with so much more passion and intelligence. When I sit and think, Karen's gonna email me and ask, can I freeze this? Can I reheat this? Is this a city that's safe for me to visit? Is this a piece of information I sit and think like, what is she going to react to this? Put it in your post. Because these are all the things that people who are already on your page are gonna start thinking of. And that's a really easy way to find other keywords. So if I have a baked chicken and I say, this is how to freeze it, well, I'm also getting a how to freeze baked chicken keyword as well as my main keyword. There's so many ways to find keywords within our own work that we don't necessarily need the computer on, that we're not just going for the #1 hit. There's so many ways that we can expand or relate to our audience and really draw them in. Identify features that your keyword is looking for. Again, that's just fleshing out more information. The problems, kind of talk through all of that. Tools, I'm not gonna really get in the weeds with this because I feel like so many of us know it, but I also have a link at the end to all of the SEO tools that I use. I use SEMrush all the time. I live in that program. It is expensive. You can share accounts, although they don't love that. But it's so valuable to find what are people actually looking for. Other things you could do, Answer the Public. It's a free site. It's answerthepublic.com. You pull it up, there's a creepy guy that asks you for your question. You type in something, just type in a keyword, and they're going to give you a real search result of everything people are typing around the keyword. So if you say visiting Chicago, they will say how to visit Chicago, why to visit Chicago, what to do in Chicago. You can look and see what people are actually searching. Totally does half the work for you. It's so great, it's so easy. You can find things that people are actually looking for to then put in your post and relate to them. Some of this, again, when we're looking at keywords, so many times, like I said earlier, you want to look at someone's site and like, oh, it's going really well. I know a lot of people are looking for this right now, or this is a really hot recipe. I see it all over Pinterest. I'm going to do something like it. What we forget to do a lot of times is look at some of those as not oh, I need to do this because it's viral. I need to offer something because my competitors are offering it and I'm not. I had a competitor that knocked me out of a ranking for something that I was ranking really high on. I also don't get really hung up on those. I think so-and-so took my ranking. It's all nonsense. It's taking you away from the work. Don't pay so much attention to it. But it is really important information to know, okay, I dropped. Is there something I did wrong that someone else is doing better? Or is there something else that I'm not offering people? So someone knocked me out for a chicken dish that I did, and I realized their site is great because they're giving so many other things that I'm not doing. And I found a ton of recipes, not to copy, but I saw whole categories that I wasn't even addressing. I noticed that they had tons and tons and tons of egg dishes. Well, I don't really like eggs, so I didn't have any. So I worked with my husband to do a whole line of deviled eggs and did a bunch of different dishes. So many times we look at things and we're like, oh, I should copy that. But it's not about that. It's about finding what other people are offering that you're not. All of SEO to me basically boiled down is what are the features on your site that you are giving users and what are the features that you're not giving users that they're looking for. So it's not about stealing or redoing things, but it is about finding ways that you're not serving your users. Every single one of us has gaps in our content, has different content that could build our existing content up that we're ignoring, that we're not doing because I don't like this, or I don't talk about this, or this isn't really my style. Does anyone write recipes that you don't like or talk about things that maybe aren't your style but you know are really, really popular? Does anyone? Yeah? So if you have someone develop recipes for coconut, it can be hard, right? Because you're like, how do I talk to this? I'm allergic to mustard. I don't have a lot of mustard dishes. Well, mustard's kind of a really popular ingredient. So I have my husband who loves mustard. And when I'm writing about it and I'm like, oh, this is the most vile creation ever, and it puts me in the hospital and I hate this stuff, it's so hard for me to write these posts because I don't connect with the content. So I have to stop myself and think like, yeah, I think it's horrible and vile and it puts me in the hospital, but it happens to be my husband's favorite thing. So I have to sit there and be like, well, I love my husband and I know he loves this, so I'm doing this for him. Or I know Karen's looking for this kind of recipe and I might not connect with it, but she does and I love her. So it helps so much to think of it from that way to kind of keep yourself motivated, because just because you're not into something doesn't mean your readers aren't. And a lot of times those terms and things that we're not addressing will help boost up our other content. And I know that sounds really weird, right? Like, how does something about mustard help something with chicken? Well, the more keywords you rank for in your niche, the more you become an authority. So we need to have really broad bases. We need to address a lot of things. Because if we're not addressing certain popular things, Google is going to see us as not as great an authority. I mean, if I am trying to be the best recipe site, I need to write stuff with mustard. I need to write egg posts, and I don't necessarily like them because people are looking for all of these things. So a lot of what I'm trying to do is find those trendy things, find the things that people are looking at, and find a way that it relates to you, and find a way to work that in within your content. Now, just because something's popular doesn't mean you're also going to have it work on your site, like I said before. But if it relates in some way, if you can link in your chicken dish and say, hey, if you like this, you might like this mustard chicken. You might like this dish or this dish. And you connect all of your content together and find ways for it to work together and find ways to connect your viral post with your viral idea that you're putting up. It is going to boost your page so much. And so many times we forget about that. We forget about the relationship between our content, and every single piece of content that you have on your site is kind of like a house of cards, right? And you can't just throw it all together at the same time. You have to slowly build them and work them in with each other. You have to find content that supports your other content. And sometimes what supports your other content might be a totally different topic, but there's a way to relate it in. So it's hard and it is a big puzzle, but your readers are already going to give you all of the information that you need to get to this place. I'm totally jumping to a different train of thought here, but so many people say, well, I don't have time to do all this. They want to hire writers, they want to do all these things, which is great. You need to do it whether you use a writer or yourself. But people ask me all the time, how do you do this? I try to post 4 to 7 times a week. Sometimes I post up to 14 times a week. Some of that's just redoing old recipes, and I can crank through those really quickly. But for new posts, I write 1,000-word posts, sometimes 2,000, 3,000-word posts. And people are like, how do you do this? How do you have the time? And I want to share my number one tip for you. And this actually has great SEO benefits as well, because you're going to establish your authority using this trick. I'm going to talk about this in a food sense, but this is totally doable for any niche. If you're talking about technology, travel, things, I like to batch my content together. So if I'm making shrimp dishes, I'll make a giant thing. I'll buy all of the ingredients. It's cheaper that way. And I make common recipes together. Or if I'm going to a city, I'm going to talk about eating, drinking, what to do, where to go, because I've already done all of that research. If I'm using similar ingredients, I've already done all the research on that, like how to store it, how to reheat it, how to serve it, all these different things, and I do them together, and then I'll publish them either spread out or sometimes right with each other. It saves so much time. I have a slide. I'm going to switch to this. So really quickly, I live on a farm. We homeschool our kids. I work from home. My husband works from home. I co-own a political company with him, and I'm posting that many times a week. I am not Superwoman. I drink a lot of caffeine, but one of the reasons I get so much done is because I do things like this. So this is a series I did recently. I have Cajun shrimp, I have some mofongo, and I did a Creole sauce. 3 basic topics. Oh, actually, I also had chicken in there, and shrimp, chicken, Creole, and a mofongo. So I made 9 dishes. There's only 8 pictured. But I sat down. This was one afternoon. I made the sauce. I tested it with everything. So I put the chicken in one. I put the shrimp in one. I put the mofongo in one. I put one with them all together. I did just the shrimp, just the chicken, just the sauce. All these different recipes that I could do and add together. I was done in an afternoon, writing, shooting, everything, because I already had the research done. I did it all together, and now I went from, mofongo is a really random term. I didn't think it was going to do anything for my site, but I'm getting amazing traffic from it now because I'm boosting all of these things together because they all work together. So they're all working to prop each other up, and it also saved me a ton of time and money on ingredients. So if you're not batching content, if you're not finding similar things that you can do, that's one of my number one hacks. If you are going to make ground beef dishes, buy a ton of it and do it all in an afternoon and do them different ways. And you're going to know this is how to freeze it, or this is how to do all these different things. Again, going to a city, you've already done all of this research. Sit down and do them together. You save so much time, and you're going to be able to connect the information in a way that now with all of these dishes, people click from each recipe, which is kind of funny because they're all kind of the same recipe. Especially like some of the ones where I put the things in, it's like I'm adding this into it. They could really easily do that themselves, but they click to it, so that's great. And they spend so much time on the site, and they read about the history of the dish or the different instructions, and it's grown my site so much because now I'm an expert on a dish I hadn't had before I was in Puerto Rico a couple months ago. So there's little things that you can do like this that save a ton of time, but also grows your site really, really well because it instantly establishes your authority. Now, the really important thing to do with this is obviously link together to everything because it's just going to build that up. And with the House of Cards analogy, like that's just building a base together so that it helps to push all of the content up. And link to your popular posts or link to one that works or link to something that you can find. So many times we forget to build up our own content inside our site itself. We don't link really well, or we'll link to things. This is kind of an interesting topic, but I know so many people who will post in groups and say, hey, I'm writing about X, Y, and Z. Is there a way, or do you have a link that's like this, but different? Is anyone in those groups where they're like, I'm writing a chicken salad, who has it, but not with this ingredient? When you ask those questions in those groups, I hope every single one of you is writing down the thing that you're going to get a link for. Because if you're linking to someone else's chicken salad that's similar to yours, but with a different flavor or whatever you're looking for, that's you saying you're missing that content on your site. That is an opportunity for you to take over that keyword. Now, of course, you should link out. We need to link out. We need to help each other out. There's no limit to views on the internet. We need to be more supportive of each other and help each other. But take note of it. If you're in those groups looking for a similar dish, looking for a similar idea, looking for something to link for, why don't you have that content on your site? It's a really good thing to sit and think and look and see what are you not offering people. And when you do it this way, it just saves a ton of time because then I can hit those things that I'm not offering. Yeah. It depends. Like with this, I spaced it out a lot because if you looked at my homepage and it was all the exact same thing, it would look really bad. But sometimes if they're different enough, I'll post them all together. But with this one, it started off with a sponsored post that I did for Princess Cruises. So I did that one, and then I did some of the travel ones, so they were related, but they looked different, and you wouldn't see that I was using the same recipe like 10 times in a row. So that one I spaced it out, but like say it was ground beef, and I did hamburgers, and then like a ground beef skillet, and then whatever you're doing that day, I would totally add all of those in together because they look different enough. Some of that too is based on your site. I get a lot of visitors to my homepage, so stuff like that matters to me. And I have a decent amount of people that read my push notifications every day. If I'm sending out the same thing to my push notification people, that's, 200,000 people I don't want to piss off with the same recipe over and over each day, so I will space that out. But everyone's needs are really different on that. If people don't go to your homepage, totally do them a bunch in a row. If they're responding to that, do it. Yeah. Yeah. The tool that's really helped me even more with this is now that I switched to Create and I use the Create lists, I'll put the link in really easily there, and then I just add that card. So all of those are linked together through Create, and I have the pictures in there, and I'm like, if you really love this, check out this, this, and this. And when I go and publish a new post, I just add that into my Create card and go for the next. Yeah. And if you're using Create, to turn off the markup in a recipe post. And I know as one of the Create people, can you answer, like, is it okay to reuse that card over and over? Because I do, and I turned off. Okay, yeah. For me, it's just really easy that way, because then I don't have to go through that list of links. It's already there for me. I just add the new one, pop the Create list in with my recipe, and I'm done. It saves so much time. These are tiny little things that can make a huge difference. And people like to see those grids, and they're clicking through really well. So whether you're using that or another tool, I like that visual thing. It just helps me save time. Improving old content. Some of those posts from 2010 when it was like, link party number 114. Has anyone ever sat down on their computer and Googled link party number 114? Because I haven't. Obviously, we need to go in. That's the low-hanging fruit, but it can make the absolute biggest difference today to go and change up that content. I used to say, like, oh, my son hit a kid in preschool today. No one's Googling, did Courtney's son hit a kid in preschool today? They are Googling, oh, hey, you told me how to make this, but I'm missing this piece of information. These are all the little things that we don't really think about. That's the easiest way to grow your content, is to fix some of that old stuff. Talk about why everything is really important to your post. That's another thing we don't do. If you're listing out ingredients, a lot of times we'll say, you need to do X, or you need this, this, and this. Well, talk about why that's important. Does anyone get the comments where they're like, oh, I used baking soda instead of flour, and I added peanut butter instead of chicken? I mean, I get the weirdest substitutions. And they'll say, oh, does it work if I use this or this? I'm like, no, they're not even the same food. Like, they're not even on the same planet. I don't understand what you're doing. But then I realized these people are asking me for more information. They're saying, I don't have this. Can I use this? I'm allergic to this. Can I use this? And then I had a huge light bulb that went across, and it was like, well, why am I not adding that in the post? Why am I not sitting thinking about, is Karen going to ask, can I use baking soda instead of flour, or some random weird thing? Because you know it's all there. And people come up with the weirdest stuff. So write about that in your post. It also saves you a lot of time because you're already talking about it. Again, this kind of, I already went on this a little bit, but again, it has to be said. So many people look at content and they're like, this is so big, this is wonderful, I'm going to crush it because this person is. Doesn't work. If your site is not primed for it, if your users don't like it, if it's not working with your other content, you can't just go in and say, oh, Courtney's crushing it, I'm going to take her 10 recipes. And I'm not saying that because I don't want you to go in and take my 10 recipes. It just doesn't work that way. I have a really popular post that a ton of people redid this year, and I was like, no, that's a huge earner for me. Well, it didn't necessarily work with their sites, and I realized that on this one big holiday that they go viral, I actually had more visits than ever before. It has nothing to do with that. Our sites are totally separate from each other. Ideas are not just in a vacuum. Don't get so hung up on it. Don't feel that you need to write something because it's really big. Write something because it's big for your people and your site. And again, build a strong foundation. You're not going to build a house if you have a bunch of cards scattered all over the place that are totally not interconnected. That was so much. Anyone have questions? Please, please. I went through really fast. Yeah.
I'm coming.
I find that sometimes I get kind of stuck on using similar keywords where if I should make a whole new post or if I should just try to integrate that keyword into an existing post that's already successful. Do you have any tips for how you decide that?
If you can write a post that's whatever length that you're used to doing, write the new post. If you have enough to give and you think it's different enough, and it's not the exact same keyword because you don't want to cannibalize your keywords, they need to be a little bit different. But if I'm making garlic baked chicken and I'm making baked chicken, they could be the same damn thing, but I have garlic in one. Do it as a new post because people are going to search for that. Make sure it's something you can flesh out.
Even if you're getting search traffic for that one term, like say you're getting search traffic for baked chicken and your garlic on your garlic baked chicken post. I don't want to.
Yeah, if it's really popular, so you also don't want to mess with the one that you're already doing. So if you're getting a ton of with the chicken thing, if people are searching garlic baked chicken and they end up in your plain baked chicken post, don't mess with that, because they're already telling you that that's working for them. And maybe you could flesh it out in that post to get more, but that is one area where your readers are telling you it's working for them, so don't necessarily detract from that. But if it's something that you're like, oh, I could really easily do this, and they're not competing, do it. A lot of times I do that with like separate things where I'm like, oh, if you're allergic to this, use this. And then I'm like, oh, maybe I should write that post.
Question. In terms of bounce rate for your post, do you consider 50% to be high, 80%, 90%? Where do you kind of
It
draw the
totally
line
depends
there?
on niche, because for food, it's really high. Most food bloggers are like astronomically lucky if you're lower than like 70. We have higher bounce rates, especially if you have a lot of Pinterest traffic. One thing I try to do to reduce my bounce rate is make sure that I'm really clear about the focus, so people know exactly what I'm talking about off the bat before they click. But I think that's sort of an industry specific, because if you're not talking about food, I feel like I can't. It is so different for each place, especially like Pinterest kills all of our bounce rates a lot. Which, a really quick tip for that, when you look at your featured image, and this is a food or travel tip, it probably works for technology or other things too. I just can't come up with an example for it. But I try to take pictures where my ingredients or the location are really clear. So if I'm talking about Chicago, I'm going to have like really famous landmarks. Pinterest always talks about AI search things, and they're talking about image search, and Google talks about image search. And outside of all of that, your readers are going to see that featured. If you want like the featured snippet, I always want to make sure that my pictures make it clear. So like if I'm using mushrooms in a dish, I'll slice them in a way that you can see it's a mushroom, and I won't overcook it, so you're not like, what's that weird brown blob? You're like, oh, there's a mushroom, there's chicken. Little things like that help lower your bounce rate right away, because people are like, oh, I can see there's X, Y, and Z in this, I'm in. Or they'll say, that's not for me, there's mushrooms, I'm moving on.
Quick question. Earlier you were talking about, what was it?
Categories.
The categories, and how to...
Like make sure you filled in all the info. What do you
Yeah.
mean exactly by that?
So if you're in some of that is different for each theme. So if you have like a custom theme, you might need to talk to your designer. I'm on a child theme, so I will click on the category page, and if you click on the page and you open it up and you see nothing there are fields that you can click on to fill in. So I'll write like a 3-sentence. So for desserts, I'll say, great easy desserts, and say like cakes, cookies, blah, blah, whatever keywords that I want to have in there. And I'll kind of explain like what the category is about. Like a quick 2 or 3-sentence summary of what you're actually offering. It just, anytime you have sites or anything in your site that you haven't filled out and haven't given that information, it's a lost opportunity to connect with search. There's so many places, especially in WordPress in our themes, there's so many places that you can go in and fill out all of this information. And the more information you give that's actually relevant, the better. Yeah.
Sorry, I do meal plans. So for keyword, it's people are looking for like these healthy meal plans, and it's the same thing over and over again. And I have a ton of them, and I struggle with how to make that work. And if I'm
because you're probably
all
doing
sorts
like
of bad things.
Meal plan number 47
It's numbered,
or easy week. Yeah. I used to do those too. Do you do them yourself or with other people?
Myself.
And do you ever do like themes with them? Or?
So I try, and then there are sometimes there's just no theme. It's the most random.
Sometime your thing could be 10 or an easy weekly meal plan for baseball moms or for chicken lovers or for if there's ways that you can group that, it might work. That's kind of a harder one. But if you look at the meal plans that are really well searched, maybe you can find some patterns in. But I would try to do something fun, kind of like that. Or, not everything is going to be done for SEO's benefits. And if you have a ton of readers that love this because they get it in your email box every week, well, then maybe it's not for SEO and you don't necessarily need to work with it because your readers are telling you they find it valuable. So that's kind of a for yourself, because not everything we do is for SEO, right? Like, again, I do travel stuff on my blog because I am have massive commitment issues and hate being in the same place for more than 10 days. So I had to like create that. But that's not for SEO, that's for me. And it's growing in SEO, but
Thank you.
yeah.
Do you try to or concentrate at all on getting backlinks to?
Yes, I do try to get backlinks, but I'm not super aggressive about it. I get so many emails a day from people like, oh, you have this, link to my this, and I ignore it. So I don't send those out because they annoy the crap out of me, and I feel like I'm annoying the crap out of someone else. There are resources like HARO, Help a Reporter Out, where you can respond to reporters' questions for informations. I'll link to other people, and then they'll see it, and hopefully they'll link back. I want them, but I'm really casual about it. One thing I do is like when people say, oh, can we share this, or can we, I'm like, yeah, share it. Copy it. I don't really care. If you add a link to me, great. I don't. I mean, please don't go copy all my stuff and repost it. but that kind of would hurt you too. So yeah, I think that's probably, I'm around. I have my email address on here. I'm around all weekend. Please, if there's anything. I went super fast. I'm sorry. But hopefully that was beneficial. Yay.